shake things up.
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
So,
Recording in progress.
good to see you all at ending the year with this ethnic media roundtable. How are you doing? And you know, I think that what really sort of personified why speaking to you directly was so important, I think it was highlighted last week, Mona, when you asked the question about City Hall and how do we diversify the City Hall press corps, the way what Police Plaza did, which had little or no ethnic media and community media representation. The next day in the paper, the story was not that we want to expand access, it was just the opposite. It stated that we wanted to limit access. And it was a total distortion of what was actually discussed in the media. And that is what we have experienced over and over again, just a distortion of what this administration has been able to do. And I would really implore all of you to go and look at our win list. Our win list around public safety, which I ran on, as we indicated, close to a little over 13,000 guns off our streets, homicides are down, shootings are down, 5 of the 7 major crime categories. Our economic recovery from our bond approval rating to more private sector jobs in the history of the city, what we did around housing, what we did for young people, the summer youth jobs. I mean, you can go on and on and on. The list is there, the list is online. But those stories don't get out. The sensationalism is doing just the opposite. It is sensationalizing this administration, which happens to be the most diverse leadership in the history of this city. And so we knew we had to speak to the community-based and ethnic media, and that's what Jose has done an amazing job. But not only speaking with you, we heard some of the things that Mona, you said on the campaign trail, where we put our advertising dollars. We went in and revamped and re-examined where the advertising dollars were going as well. What we do with Michael Gardner and NWBEs. We have so much more we want to do, but as hard as it is to believe, I've only been here for 2 years. 2 years. And when I came in, I was dealing with the pandemic. I was dealing with crime. I was dealing with just a state of disorder. And then in the midst of that, in April, we got hit with the asylum seeker crisis. And instead of saying, okay, I can't accomplish, we kept forging ahead. We had 152,000 migrants asylum seekers. 1.5 the size of Albany. Entire city was dropped into our city. And unlike other municipalities, not one child, one family sleeping on the streets. We've been able to accommodate without any support from our federal government, and we need even more support from our state government. New York City has been carrying on this on our own, and it's just unfair. But with all of that, we still surged ahead. Everything from decreasing rats complaints, particularly in rat mitigation zones, to the amount of units of housing, without a housing plan from Albany. I want to be clear on that. We didn't get 421A from Albany. We didn't get raised FAR from Albany. We did not get office conversions from Albany. New York City has been managing this crisis and the movement of this city with just the citizens of this city and the amazing team that we've assembled together. And so it was important to us as part of our success is to speak to our local and ethnic and community media. And you probably have been in here more than what you have been in any other administration. Just as I have been the mayor that has been on the trains more than any administration, have been to Rikers Island more than any other administration. We can go through a whole list of what an on-the-ground mayor looks like and what we have accomplished. And so, thank you for coming in. This is a great way to end the year by fielding your questions, and I look forward to 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving a seat to the table to all of us, including me. Because if not, it work for you, I wouldn't be here today. So we're gonna start, one question per reporter. We have a list that we have on the RSSPP. We're gonna move along as soon as possible. So let's start with Radio Soleil, Rico Dupuy. Rico? Oh, right here.
What's up, brother? How are you, man?
You were quoted as saying that despite your rocky relationship with President Biden, but you will support him.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
I always say no one agrees with someone 100% of the time. I don't agree with myself 100% of the times. And when you look at who you want to lead the country, you have to look at the totality of their administration, and you have to look at who's in the field. And when I went to the president to deal with funding we needed for crime and I asked him to come to the city, he came to the city and he brought his team here and they gave us real resources on crime. ATF, we did not have an ATF appointment. I told him we really needed it to deal with the guns. He did that. When I asked him about ghost guns, they were there for that. There's a host of things the president has done around COVID, cycling us out of COVID. Some of the stimulus dollars that we're still using now is going to sunset in 2024. But he has been there. I disagree with his administration's role on the asylum seeker issue. But he's not alone. Congress is also at fault. We need a real immigration reform. We need to make sure that these cities, New York, Chicago, Houston, Brownsville, El Paso, that they're properly funded for this. This is a national problem. So I disagree with him on it. I've been very clear. But when I look at the totality of his administration and what he has done, I think he has been a good president.
Next will be Primera Línea, Luis Martinez.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I agree you. You mentioned about the immigration crisis. What the governor of Texas still sending migrants all over the place. What can a migrant expect from your administration next year?
From day one, I greeted, I believe, the first busloads of migrants and asylum seekers that came to the city. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning. Commissioner Castro joined me at the Port Authority, and it was a far cry different than what Governor Abbott is doing, who has just broadcasted, I'm going to send migrants and asylum seekers to Democratic cities. I think what he's doing is wrong, and we are pushing back on that. And we're going to do what we have done. We're going to make sure that people have a place to stay in a decent and humane environment. We're going to educate their children. We're going to assist them in applying for TPS. We hope we can expand it, not only for Venezuelans, but we need to have the West Africans that are coming. We need to have it from people who are coming from Ecuador and other places. And we're going to continue to advocate to make sure that people can experience the American dream. And that's the right to work. I mean, I don't know anything more anti-American than being told you cannot work. And we want to educate the public to say that all of us need to mobilize our voices, our letter writers, our emails, and say this should not be happening to New York City. But my role as the mayor is to make sure I provide those who come to the city with the basic services they need so that they can continue to pursue the American dream.
Thank you. Next one is Radio Rampa, Arthur Adamski.
Thanks, Mayor. So we're halfway through your third term, and then we're at the end of the year. What is one thing that you're most proud of your accomplishment? Because the city and you accomplished a lot. What's one thing that you're most proud of, and one thing that you most regret?
I'm really proud of the public safety aspect of it. First few days in office, if not weeks, I had 2 police officers slain, Rivera and Mora. I visited 11-month-old parents in the hospital who was shot in the head. Thank God that baby's still alive and we still communicate. I watched crime was moving in the wrong direction. And when I was riding the subway system, no one was on the system. And I witnessed how the city could come back I knew that, as I said on the campaign trail, the prerequisite to prosperity is public safety. We witnessed a decrease in crime, people back on the subway system, peaking out at 4 million riders. Tourism is back in the city, over 60 million tourists. The city's humming again. And I knew if I could make the city safe, we could do that. And I had a great commissioner, Commissioner Sewell, and now Commissioner Caban, and we're just gonna continue to lean into those successes that we had. My biggest regret is the largest thing that's impacting us, and that's the migrant asylum seekers. My first trip to look at this firsthand, I stopped in El Paso. I should have gone down to the Darien Gap. I should have went further. I should have went to Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico to get a full grasp of the number of people that were coming up and just the propaganda that was being placed to come to New York and get a full understanding of the passion of coming to New York. That would have, I think, helped me get a full scope of what we were really about to face and which we could potentially face. There's still another 7 million that could leave Venezuela. We could see New York can get another 1 million people. And so I think that is one of my biggest regrets, that I didn't get down into the Darien Gap earlier.
Thank you.
Next will be Urdu News, Moshin Zahir.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the last almost whole year, in every town hall meeting, you've been to a question of illegal sale of marijuana is raised. And if in the last meeting you had in Corona, if I'm not wrong, you said you may have power to enforce some kind of a law against the illegal sale and illegal marijuana shops. So can you give us some details about any possible powers you're going to have in the near future?
Well, with the limited power that we have, we removed $23 million of marijuana out of illegal stores. But a police officer can't go in and enforce the whole cannabis law. He has to find creative ways of going in with DCWP, the Office of Workers Protection, and the sheriffs. It's just taking too much manpower. And these illegal stores are undermining what we fought for. The legalization of marijuana was really going after the legacy of folks who were unfairly arrested because of marijuana so they could open up stores legally. When you have all these illegal shops, number one, it's undermining that. And number two, it is selling products more than illegal cannabis. It is all sorts of products are being there, from edibles, and our children are consuming these products. And so Albany simply needs to give local municipalities the authority to go in and enforce. If I'm given that, I can tell each precinct, map out where your illegal shops are located, and within 30 days, I want them cleared up. We don't have that power now. We've asked for it last year, they did not give it to us. The state office of cannabis is doing it. They don't have the manpower to do it. And this is not only a New York City problem, this is a problem that has been impacting the entire state. All over the state, my colleagues are talking about this issue. We just need to locally have the power to go in, to enforce, and to close these establishments.
Next one, Philippine Daily Mirror, Ricky Rivera.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
Pleased to be meeting you in here for the first time. My question is that Controller has revoked your emergency powers to deal with contractors, though, and that you were given in November 2022, so that to deal with the migrant services. However, it was revoked because of a no-bid contract to a medical service company and with no experience on migrant services. Can you give us a status of that? Why there was no proper vetting on the company?
Well, a couple things. One, for over a year, I was asking the controller to go to Washington, D.C. and add his voice to the other citywide speaker, Adrian Adams, Jamani Williams, and myself, that's been telling Washington to give us the resources. The controller's supposed to be watching our money. He didn't do that. He finally went to Washington, D.C., and when he came back, what did he say? I want to revoke the emergency powers of the administration. Not talking about what happened in D.C., not talking about what he asked for in D.C. He came back and critiqued who globally people are commending us for the job that we've done. 50% of people who came to the cities, 57% of people who came to this city are now self-sustaining because of what we've done. We put a 30-day rule in, 80% are not coming back in our system. All of my colleagues are looking at what we have done and stated it's remarkable what you're doing. Massachusetts has 7,500 families, and they said they can't handle anymore. We have 152,000 people. And so what the controller did, last week we got close to 4,000 people. We're getting anywhere from 2,500 to 4,000 people a week. 8,000 every 2 weeks, 16,000 a month that we have to, as soon as we get them, we have to place them somewhere with a short window of time. That's an emergency that you need to be able to move quickly. So the controller said, well, we want to take away your authority to do so. And so when he says, well, because you gave a no-bid contract to someone who is not familiar in handling this type of crisis, I'm not familiar in handling this type of crisis. None of us are familiar in handling this type of crisis. You know, what are we talking about? No one woke up and said, how do you house an entire city within the city and everyone that's there can't work? So it makes no sense. And it's going to slow down the process. And we can't politicize this issue because the residents of our city, they are at stake. And it's unfortunate he decided to do that position. We still have the authority to do emergency contracts, but we have to go through a longer process when this stuff is moving so rapidly that we don't have time to go through a longer process.
So in other words, your power has not been reinstated then, right?
No, it has not.
Mona Davis, Little African News.
Good morning, or rather good afternoon.
Mona, how are you?
I'm well. I have a question on mayoral control, but just before I ask my mayoral control question, just allow me, because everyone is in this room. You mentioned what happened on Tuesday, and I just need everyone in this room to understand that Mayor Adams stood up for us on Tuesday. You know, to allow us and to give us an opportunity to be here in City Hall, and all hell has broken loose since then. So, Mayor Adams, thank you for standing up for us on Tuesday and for literally giving us and figuratively giving us a seat at the table here in City Hall. So, Mayor Adams' mayoral control is up next year. And you played the video, and we see academic outcomes have improved. We see healthier options for our children. So, Mayor Adams, what is your ask? Do you have any reforms to the current governance of mayoral control that you're seeking? How many years do you want the renewal to be, to the end of your second term? You know, what are City Hall's asks? Because we hear what parents' asks are, that some parents, that mayoral control be renewed. But what is the policy that you are seeking? What changes are you seeking to mayoral control?
Well, I think that my ask is the same thing they gave two other mayors. I don't think an African-American mayor should be treated any differently, particularly with a school system predominantly black and brown. And I am probably the least modern day mayor that has ever gone through the school system. I'm a public school student. The chancellor is a public school chancellor. We are committed because we sat in those seats, and we understand what it is to turn around the school. So let's look at what we're doing. We've outpacing the state in improvements. Reading and math scores have increased, and not only have they increased, but we're outpacing folks. He has changed the game on reading. People are hailing what he's doing all across the entire country, if not the globe, of switching to a phonics-based reading. What we're doing around dyslexia, what we're doing around what I think is one of the most important things we could do. We are feeding the healthcare crisis with our children. And we're taking a bold step of saying we have to stop feeding our children bad food that impacts their emotional, physical, and their entire development of their full personhood. And it's just like, why would someone do this? Because you're criticized for doing this, but the science is right. We are feeding the healthcare crisis of our children. So our schools are continuing to be safe. We have not, you're seeing mass shootings all over the entire country. We have not had one shooting in our school. We've done a great job of removing those students who are inflicting violence and without being heavily punitive. I'm saying to the state, let us continue the success. Others had 4 years to do it. At a minimum, we should be given the same thing that others were received. And we are showing how we're able to move the needle. Male control, we can't go backwards. We're not gonna go to a community board model again. And when people say, well, parents need to have a voice, parents have a voice so much in the school system, and Chancellor Banks has been unbelievable in his accessibility. We both have the same style. We love getting among people and sharing our vision. That's why we do these town halls. And he has been extremely accessible. And that's the type of chancellor people should want.
Thank you.
Next time is All Time Press, Nayaba Rinde.
Good afternoon, sir. So speaking about school,
Yes.
how would you respond to Michael Mugu saying that there's an $8 billion surplus?
Yes.
And then you don't have to cut anything in schools or any of the city agencies.
Mm-hmm. And everything is on the table. And I want to be clear on that. And I said that a 1,000 times. Everything is on the table. And if we could use our surplus without, number one, hurting our borrowing ability, our bond ability, what the predictability is for the economy, if we can use it without endangering anything, and that's what the team is looking at. We're looking at everything. I want to be clear on that. Then we will do that. But I trust Jock Jihad in making sure he navigates us through where we are now. And we are continually to meet to say, what are all the things we could do? And so it sounds like, okay, you guys got $8 billion. People look at the sustainability of those rainy day funds to make sure, based on where the economy is going, are we going to be prepared? The reason we got $8 billion is because I came into office and I told everyone we have to start being more efficient. We have the highest amount of reserve funds probably in the city's history, because I came in saying we have to stop spending. The previous administration put in place money from the stimulus dollars, knowing that the stimulus dollars was going to sunset in 24, they put permanent programs in place, knowing that we was going to lose the money. And when those permanent programs go, now we have to find the money for it. And so there's only certain ways we can put cash in our city. Raising property taxes, fines and fees, or layoffs. That's where we are. And so we're looking at everything to determine how do we get through this. But let's be clear, this is not sustainable. So even if we empty out our reserves and we keep having this flow of 4,000 people coming a week, we're gonna keep emptying out everything we have. We're in an unsustainable place, and I don't see any end in sight, particularly after going down to South America.
Next one, Caribbean Times, Michael
Hi,
Roberts.
Mr. Mayor.
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm good.
Good.
My question is has to do with local community economics. We're all small businesses and in the publishing business, newspapers. Recently, we took a really heavy cut in respect to advertising. Advertising from the administration, city end is one of the lifebloods, keeps us in business. Apart from that, our local community businesses. they took a heavy hit with COVID and really cannot sustain. I'm told by some of my colleagues that come January, they're going to close. They could no longer sustain. Is there something that you can do to alleviate that kind of load? Because we've taken a 6% cut. When our publishing costs, Caribbean Times News publishing costs for 20,000 newspapers every 2 weeks is $3,500. Printing has gone twice for the year. So for 1 month, we lose $7,000. And when we look at what ads we get from the city, we got one last August, we haven't got any more. And the time factor to pay us is a problem. So this puts a tremendous amount of strain on local publications. As I said, some are going to fold because of the decision by the city, and it's non-negotiable, we told, that we now have to take $1,200 for a full page, $700 for a half page, which really, few and far between, we just cannot survive. Is there anything that you can do and your office can do to really see if you can alleviate that problem?
Yeah, 2 things. First, I want to go back to something Mona said about standing up for local and community-based media. I paid a price for that. You know that I pay a price. I'm paying a price for every action I'm taking that is calling for everyone being inclusive. You know, it's not lost on me that, you know, when I talk about bringing everybody at the table, people who feel they're losing a seat are digging in to say, you know what? This guy's a problem. This guy's a problem. And so that's the price I'm paying, but that's the price I'm willing to pay. Because if we kick the door open, then we never have to worry about it shutting again. And those who have always stood up for what was right were willing to pay that price. Now when it comes down to advertising dollars, when I speak to all my agencies, and we talk about these cuts we have to make, which are painful, not one person raised their hand and say, no, do me. Not one. There are no good good decisions. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody. You know, there are no good decisions with my adult homes. There's no good decisions in my after-school programs, police department. People are saying, how the heck are you cutting the police? You know, there's no good decision in cutting our sanitation problem issue. There are no good decisions. And so when New Yorkers feel the pain, they look towards their mayor. What I must do is to let them know where the real source of our problems. You know, New Yorkers are angry, and the mayor, I'm more angry than any New Yorker because my legacy is being trampled on. I turned around the city in 2 years with no one through. Everybody told me it was going to take me 5 years. In 2 years, I turned around the city. And now that entire legacy is trampled on because of a national crisis that has been dropped in our city. So we don't have the money. We would love to. Jose's plan that he rolled out of making sure that you get, you know, the adequate amount of advertising, because we know that's how you function. All that plan that he rolled out in the beginning of the year, all of that we have to move away. All the plans we had around schooling, the plans we had around housing, the plans we had around cleaning our streets, all those plans are now up in arms because of what they're doing to us.
Thank you. Next one, El Diario, Edwin Martinez.
Mr. Mayor.
How are you, man?
Good, thank you so much for asking. Okay, Mayor, obviously outside a lot of people really recognize those accomplishments that you have done this year. But on the other side, we hear a lot of people who, as you said, they are angry, and they are feeling angry because they think this city is less affordable for them. You have been telling a lot of times that you really want to make New York City more affordable and you want to help our communities. But like talking about making cuts in agencies, even though is a reason because you have spent a lot of money that is going to affect more our communities. My question is, are you planning to go back about those cuts that you announced, and also are you willing to freeze the rent or to push the board to freeze the rent this coming year, since renting is one of the biggest concerns to make people really insecure?
So, as the mayor, you know, there are so many areas that make the city expensive to live in, and it's extremely expensive. As we saw in New York State, is hemorrhaging people faster than any other state. That's the whole state. It's extremely expensive to live in New York City. So what we did last year, we said, okay, how do we put money back in the pockets of New Yorkers so that we can sort of offset those things that we don't control? We were able to get an earned income tax credit for the first time in over 20 years to put money back in the pockets of low income New Yorkers. We did real reform in child care. Parents making $55,000 a year were paying $55 a week on child care. Now they're paying less than $5 a week on child care. Our NYC residents, we gave them free access to broadband and cable so they could not be on the outsides when it comes down to having access free. They're paying for it for free. Got our children some youth jobs to help offset the cost of being a young person, buying school supplies, etc. 100,000 of them. So we wanted to find ways of putting money back into the pockets of everyday New Yorkers. And that is what we were successfully in doing, from the reduced fare, a Metro card, to what we've done with children in foster care, to pay for their college tuition and give them a stipend. Just a long list of things that we've done to sort of offset the cost. The housing stock that is part of the rent guideline boards, the attempt to raise it to 9 and 10% increase, we push back on that. That's an independent board. We appoint, and with all my boards, my rule has been, you appoint knowledgeable people, which also is a tenant, some of the tenant advocate that we have on the board, and come up with a fair way of what the increase could be. When people think of rent increases, they often think of these entities that have thousands of units. To the Black and brown community, if you have a 6-family, 7-family, 8-family house, that's all of your assets. Everything has gone up on those property owners. Heat has gone up, electricity has gone up, water rates have gone up. If we say no increases and their prices have gone up, we're destabilizing those communities. We're destabilizing. Ms. Jones came from Trinidad. She bought a house, 8-family house. She's been holding on all this time. Everything, her entire assets is that house. We're saying to her now, everything has gone up around you. You must keep your rents at a zero increase. She loses that house. Now some developer comes in and develop that property. You have a whole different dynamics. And so it sounds good when people say don't raise any rent at all, but we have to dig down to the crevices of it. How does it impact all those folks that are small property owners? And how would it impact their lives? And how does it take away their assets? And so we have to be very careful. There must be a balance of not allowing someone to do some outrageous increase, but also making sure we can stabilize these small property owners. And that's my focus, to make sure I do that.
And about the cuts?
Which one of the cuts?
The cuts, like, are you planning to go back with the idea of the
city agency
cuts? But I don't, there's something that I don't think a lot of folks are really understanding. The cuts are not desire or luxury, they're necessities. We don't have the money. We don't have the money. We need to be clear on that. The law requires every 2 years I must balance my budget. Every 2 years. And so, Eric, here's how much money you have. You have $106 billion. 76 billion around that is already accounted for. You have 30 billion you can move around. But that's all you have, Eric. Your bills are coming in 20 billion. Those are your bills, 120 billion for argument's sake. You only have 106 billion. So you have to find that other 12 billion or whatever it is. You gotta find it. So only place you can find it is what you are paying for already. It's no different than if you're a homeowner and you only make $50,000 a year, but you come to find out that you are spending $60,000 a year. You gotta cut something inside your home. It means turning off lights. It means not having heat. It means not being able to buy food for a week and having 2 meals instead of 3 meals. That's what I must do. The law requires me to do that. And so there's no way to say, okay, we're not gonna do any cuts. Because the question no one is able to answer, okay, well, where does that other $12 billion come from? That's the problem.
So next one, Bosa TV, Fahim.
What's happening?
How are you doing, sir? My question is the same related to that. Because of the migrant crisis, you're cutting off the budget from every agencies, police departments, and are you going to cut the budget off to next year from the ethnic media?
Cut the budget of who?
Ethnic media budget?
Ethnic media.
Ethnic media.
Yeah, same question that Michael.
Yeah, no, you just asked the same question. Just as I said, that every idea is on the table, every agency is going to be impacted. I have a stack of money that I normally pay to services in the city, which includes ethnic media. That stack of money has a big hole in it. And every agency, every entity, everything that stack of money paid for at one time is going to be impacted. I mean, for me to look at the police department, which I believe public safety is crucial, if that is not sending a signal to folks that every agency and entity is going to be impacted. And we're trying to minimize the pain, but it's challenging. January, we have to find another $7 billion. This is like, this is unimaginable. This is unimaginable that after doing a 5% peg for $5 billion, that I gotta find another $7 billion. It's just.
Amsterdam News, Ariana.
How are you?
I'm good. I think I gotta ask about solitary confinement.
Yes.
And I'm gonna preface my question by saying my father was the CEO at Rikers for 10 years.
Was he?
I get the perspective of this whole safety thing.
Yes.
However, how do you justify using a practice long term when it's been proven that it increases instances of violence and recidivism? That seems counterintuitive to your goal.
Yes. And I don't support solitary confinement. I've said this like 100,000 times. Here's what I support. I support punitive segregation. Doesn't have to be a small cell. It could be in a room. I support if inmate Johnson just / inmate Bobby. Inmate Johnson should not still be in general population. And according to what's being called for, is that inmate Johnson, before he can be removed from general population, he has to have some type of due process. We don't do that now. If someone were to slash me on the street, we don't hold a trial before we arrest them. No, they go to jail until they determine if they did the crime or not. And so when people think of what we're saying about punitive segregation, which by the way, the special monitor that's overseeing us is saying the same thing, that this may be going to harm what we're trying to do about bringing down violence, which you have been successful in doing. We're not saying someone should be locked in some small cell. We're saying we have to remove you from population. Now, you know what's interesting? 80% of the people who are assaulted on Rikers Island are other inmates. 80% of those inmates just want to do their time, and they want to go home. But you have a portion, just like we have in society, of a small portion of people who are violent. And if we're saying that even though they do that violent, they should stay in general population, that's not even logical. That's not even logical. And it doesn't have to be a small cell. It could be a little dormitory. It doesn't matter to me. I just got to get them out of general population so they don't continue to inflict violence, and many of them are repeated offenders.
Cinta O'Daly and Lotus Shaw.
Mayor,
Yes.
are you going to veto the bill from the City Council on Wednesday? Are you going to veto them? Which you are not agree with them?
Yeah, we are looking at our options, and people need to really understand what is wrong with that bill. I believe that we should document stops with criminal investigations. I don't think the sponsors of that bill fully understood what they were asking for. What they're saying now is that if a person calls the police and say, my child is missing, they give that police a picture. That police goes to everyone in this room and say, have you seen this young person? When that person stops you and say, have you seen this young person? That police officer must make a report that he stopped you and ask you that question. Now, some people may say, well, okay, it's gonna take 5 minutes to do. That's fine if that's all he was asking, just you. If he asked everyone in this room, do the math. If you ask 20 people, that's 100 minutes. You ask 40 people, that's 200 minutes. So now this police officer is either in his car filling out this document that I stopped Miss Lou to ask her a question, her pedigree, why I stopped her, and has to then, at the end of the tour, he has to download all of that. The amount of police resources that is going to be consumed from this bill is just unbelievable. During the time when we said we don't want police officers doing unnecessary overtime, we got to pay them to do it. During the time when all of these council people are calling me saying they want more police in their precinct because of crime issues, we're taking them off to patrol to do paperwork. The bill is just wrong. And
so you're going to veto it?
And that's what we're looking at all of our options. The council and our team are looking at our options, and we'll make a determination in the next day or so.
AM New York, Sarah Bellalin.
AM.
Do we have Sarah here today? Okay, Strauss Media, Kit Kelly. Okay, World Journal, Elsa San. Oh, right here.
How are you?
How are you, Mayor? My question is also about the school budget cuts. Can you let us know which educational programs may be at risk of being reduced? And some, in the parents are very concerned about will the cut impact maybe smaller class size, gifted candidate programs, specialized high school? How will you address this?
Yeah, I had a meeting with the chancellor this morning going over some of the programs that, one, the dollars are sunsetting. A lot of the programs that were in place, those programs were on stimulus dollars. They're running out. And we're looking at all of the programs that we've had. Our Summer Rising program, 110,000 youth, was an excellent program. Some of our food program, Project Pivot, there's a whole list. So we don't know yet. The budget director is looking at it, and we're going to come up with a full list of what programs are going to be impacted. We're going to try to save as many as possible. But just the dollars are just not there. And there are no good solutions. I want to be very clear. There's not a program we can cut and say, well, okay, this is better than another. And so we're going to look at all the programs and decide we want to minimize the pain to our educational system.
Thank you. So we have time for 3 more questions. So we're going to have the Village Son, Lincoln Anderson.
Now we get to everybody. Yes, sir.
Thanks. One of our top issues for leaders is e-bikes and mopeds. People are pushing for the Holden bill that will legalize, license, and register the e-bikes. And Idanis Rodriguez had a meeting for all of us last year, telling people to get out of their car, get off their bikes, and walk. And all the media editors are like, our biggest readers' biggest concern is these e-bikes going the wrong way, going to red lights, going on sidewalks. You know, a woman killed in Chinatown, a woman in East Midtown in a coma from city bike e-bikes. A woman, they just told me the e-vehicle safety alliance, a woman was knocked out by a moped on the Upper East Side. I just heard a cartoonist, a radical punk cartoonist in East Village had a wrist broken by e-bike or moped. Do you believe in licensing because registering, because these riders are often fleeing the scene? So how do we catch? A lot of them are not caught, and people are just asking for accountability. Some people say transportation alternatives as undue influence of City Hall, and that they're fighting to keep these vehicles from being licensed. So I sort of
transportation alternatives have protested me a number of times because of my policies. You know, so I don't know about undue influences. You know, what has happened over the years is that our use of the streets, that use has changed drastically. Probably in the last, I would say 3-4 years. I think COVID had a lot to do with it. A lot of people would get home deliveries. Many people didn't want to be on the subway system anymore. But the streets we see now, they have changed remarkably. We now have to catch up. And every town hall we attend, that conversation comes up. E-bikes, mopeds, bikes. And I have the police commissioner and his team, I spoke with Chief Madry. We have to, number one, come up with some real enforcement without being heavy-handed and deter people from riding the bike. I ride the bike, I enjoy riding the bike. But we have to regain control of our streets, because you're right, on the sidewalk, going up and down one-way streets, it has become increasingly more dangerous, and some of the reckless driving that we are seeing. Now, some of that was app delivery services. Now they no longer have to rush because of the successes we have had with raising their pay rate, and they're no longer trying to get as many deliveries as possible. And so we think we're going to see some success there. But also there's already a bill, I think Gail Brewer passed a bill, a law I should say, where app delivery workers are supposed to wear vests with numbers on the back of them. We're looking at the implementation of that, meeting with the app delivery workers and the platforms and implementing that, because you're right, there's no way to identify someone when they do something incorrect. And then we're seeing a real influx and increase in illegal uses from those who are working in the black market. You know, when you have a large number of migrants and asylum seekers who are not able to work legally, people are going to work, and they're going to find a way. And many of them are using these mopeds and bikes to carry out their jobs. So it is a perfect storm of scenarios that I believe is impacting our streets. And you have some bicyclists who are not following the rules, and they're supposed to. They're supposed to follow the vehicle traffic law.
What about the Holden bill and licensing? Do you support that one?
I have to dig into the Holden bill. I didn't know Holden put in the building licenses. I have to look at it and come up with a determination.
Roosevelt Islander, Rick O'Connor.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I was going to ask a specific question on Roosevelt Island, but I'd like to follow up on something you were talking about regarding the media.
Yes.
Why do you think your message is being distorted by some in the media? Do you have specific reasons why? Do you think you're being treated differently than other mayors before you?
Well, listen, there's always been a relationship with the media and mayors. I don't know one mayor that said that, hey, I love the media coverage. The media has a job to critique and cover the administration. You know, it should be balanced. You know, and what I'm finding, based on my observation, is that we have a lot of people in the media industry that many of them are extremely young. They are extremely opinionated on their ideas. You know, my son said to me one day when he said, you know, Dad, the far left are restaurant owners, they're teachers, they're this, they're that. He said, why don't you think they're reporters? You know, so if you dislike Eric's policies and you have to write the story about it, you're going to give it to 10. I think we've lost some journalistic integrity. I think that everyone believes they're a columnist right now and not a reporter. The goal is to cover the facts. That's what reporters do. Columnists give their opinions. So when you have something simple as what Mona raised, the diversity in City Hall, you just go read that story. Read the story that came out in the next day, and it was like, well, we're in the same room, And we find that over and over again. We just rolled out some major initiatives that we do. I challenge you to scour the papers and find out that wait a minute, this guy just announced this major funding. This guy just announced this major initiative. And I challenge you to find it. Now you will find that, hey, we saw him eat a piece of fish. So what are they covering? What is the goal? Is the goal to say, let's cover the news of what's happening in the city? Or is the goal to distort the news? And I just think that there's a pattern that has evolved over the 2 years that I've been in office that, we're just not going to cover what this guy is doing and what this administration has accomplished. That's why I say, we have a website of our win list. When you look at our win list, you will walk away saying, wait a minute, why don't we know about this? I hear this all the time. People say, why we don't know about this?
You mentioned in the context of mayoral control
Yes.
that you were you being an African American.
Yes.
Do you think that has anything to do with your coverage?
I can't speculate. I can't speculate. I think history will reflect on this administration. I think scholars will do an analysis of saying why this mayor has been so successful in 2 years and why don't we know that? And I think great minds will dig into it and do an evaluation. Okay, what prevented us from knowing what this mayor did and this administration did in 2 years? So I can't speculate on what people are thinking. It could be that there are those who are covering me. People are assigned to cover me. If they just philosophically disagree that no matter what he does, we're not going to cover it correctly. We're going to distort it. Perfect example of that. On Dr. King's Day last year, I was at, was it last year or year before? It could have been the year before when I first got elected. I was at Madison Square Garden, and they introduced me. I went to the middle of the floor to speak, and I got a standing ovation. Some drunken guy was a heckler, yelled out profanity, and the next day the story was, Madison Square Garden boos Mayor Adams. It's like, what? So you can always find a way to say what you want. And so from that day, I said, wait a minute, what's the agenda here? And I just started taking notes. And so I can't speculate on why. History will tell us why.
Davis on radio.
Just may I ask a Roosevelt Island question?
We have
I used it
Davis
for
on radio. Davis on radio.
Davis.
Let me just get the video going. Sorry about that.
All good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
On behalf of all my colleagues, we appreciate the attention and acknowledgement to the community ethnic media. Also, to keep my job, I have to say Gregory says hi and sends his best. You've been talking about all these successes, and they're visible to, I'm sure, a lot of us, if not most of us. There's also the reality of the 5% budget cuts that happen now, and there's going to be more budget cuts, you said, come January 1st or thereabouts. Is there any kind of positive reassurance you can give to the residents of the city that the quality of life is not going to decline substantially because of this, that you've got their back, so to speak?
Yes, well, I'm not going to ever do anything that's going to impact on public safety in this city. We are going to properly mobilize our police officers to make sure that we maximize the use of their manpower. And many of you probably don't even recognize it, but historically, you used to see thousands of police officers at friendly parades, for example. We've changed that. I said that if I have the student parade, there's no reason I need 3,000 officers covering that parade. We need those officers on patrol. How we do subway patrol. So we are utilizing our manpower. There's been a real change in the deployment of how we utilize the minimum amount of resources we have. And that's same with education. You know, we're tapping into our partners in corporate America, and we're asking them to play a greater role in assisting us during this time. We need everyone to step up right now. And we have some great partnerships and internships, great partnership in building out a career pathway for our young people. We need everyone to understand the state we're in. We're not full with cash anymore, and that we must make sure that we continue the quality of life that we deserve. So even the cleanliness of the city, Commissioner Tisch is moving forward with containerizing our garbage so that we can deal with the rodent and the trash issues. How do we using technology to make sure we're plowing our streets when the snow falls so we can maximize our manpower? So this is forcing us to run a more efficient city. And efficiency does not mean a decrease in quality of life. We're not going to allow that to happen.
Thank you.
African Whistle, Trinity Wood, African. Okay, so Option TV, Roberto Garcia.
Yes, sir.
And,
What's happening?
do you think that at the end of your term you're gonna be a balanced budget for the city? Balanced budget at the end of your term?
We have to. Law requires it. You know.
Well, law says it doesn't, but you'll be able to.
Yes, we're gonna have to. I don't have a choice. I must balance my budget. I must balance my budget by law. We will have a balanced budget.
Okay, two more questions. I think
Yeah.
Okay, two more questions. So we have Weekly Dunia, Mansour Hussain.
Thank you very much. So Mayor,
What's happening?
You faced too many crises during the last 2 years. Crises like, and your team tried best to get stuff done. Crises like asylum seeker crisis, public health crisis, cut in city budget, and there was a situation in the Middle East. So what are your priorities for 2024, and what are your expectations from your partners, like federal partners, because there is a $80 billion shortfall in NYCHA's budget as well?
Yes, well, you know, I have one skill that little do you know the skills that you acquire in life, you're gonna need them in life. My ability to compartmentalize issues and items. And I spoke with a number of mayors. I read a number of books about mayors across the country, and a number of presidential situations. All of them had one piece of advice. There's always going to be crisis. Bloomberg had 9/11, de Blasio had COVID, I have the migrant asylum seekers. You can't sit back and say, woe is me. I say, well, why not me? I just thank God that I'm the mayor right now of this city during these difficult times. We needed a mayor that was willing to take the hits, that's not get distracted, stay focused, and grind. When you look at what we have gone through and look at where we are, it is because of we have a steady hand at the wheel, and you have to be willing to take the blows and not crumple over the weight of this. And I think it's everything from, you know, how I start my day, doing my smoothie, doing my meditation, doing my exercises, keeping my mind right, and my spiritual belief. You know, God got me.
Last question goes to New York Hispano, Maria Carmen Amaro.
Hello, Mayor. How are you?
How are you doing?
The United Federation of Teachers proposes to the cast that you, of the funds you announced, and they actually introduce a lawsuit against the city. How do you plan to make a solution? And do you have any alternative to find the money in order to avoid these cuts?
The UFT, the lawsuit.
Yeah, you know, someone asked me about the UFT NDC 37.
Yes.
You know, listen, I settled 90% of our private sector union jobs, 90%, 100% of the uniform services. And not only did I settle their contracts, some of the contracts was outdated for 8 years, 13 years, etc. But after I make the deal with the heads of the unions, You have to then go to the membership and let the membership vote to see if you like the deal that the mayor made with them. You look at all those unions, they were having 90-something% ratification. When the membership was saying, we like the deal that this mayor did for us. He's a working class man and he did that. Henry Garrido is a friend. He represents his members. Michael Mulgrew represents the UFT, his teachers. There's nothing wrong with them saying, Eric, you did something that we believe is in violation of a particular procedure. We're going to go to court and sue based on that. I don't have a problem with that. They have to represent their position. I have to represent my position. But at the end of the day, I'm able to sit down at the table with them and say, hey, we have other issues we have to deal with. How do we work together to get there? You know, so if we got to go in court, you know, because we disagree with something, it's not a reflection on both of them. Both those unions love this city. They're doing the best they can to navigate us through this. They've been helpful. Michael Mulgrew was helpful during COVID. Henry Garrido has always been helpful. I think he's one of the top civil servants in the city. Very smart, real true New Yorkers, and willing to do whatever is needed to help New York. So it doesn't bother me that they believe that an action we took need to go in front of a judge. There's nothing wrong with that. The judge will make the decision, or if we're able to come to a conclusion. Before that, we're able to come to the conclusion. Right? None of this is personal. This is professional. We have to get through where we are. I hate that we're here. It hurts a lot that we're here. But the reality is, leadership is about making tough choices. And I got to make these tough choices, and I wouldn't be the leader of this moment if I was not willing to do that. And I guarantee you, when people look back over this administration, they're going to say, this was one hell of a mayor. This mayor loved the city. This mayor navigated us through the turbulent times. And, you know, I'm like broccoli, man. You don't like me now, but you don't love me later when you have a healthy body.
One last word, Mayor.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Happy New Year's to you.
Thank you, sir.